Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Antidormi. I'm a Vice President of Institutional Sales at Bloom Burton Securities. It is my pleasure to introduce Conavi Medical, a Toronto-based medtech company transforming how cardiologists visualize and treat coronary artery disease, the world's leading cause of mortality. For full disclaimer, Bloom Burton Securities does own shares of Conavi. And I should say Bloom Burton is the leading healthcare investment bank in Canada, and we pride ourselves in bringing to market some of the best opportunities and ideas to investors. Conavi is one of those ideas and is one of the few ideas right now that we cover in research in medtech. And a large part of it is because of its differentiated technology, large addressable market, and near-term commercial launch, which I think you'll find interesting. So Conavi Medical has developed the NovaSight hybrid system, the first and only intravascular imaging platform that combines both optical coherence tomography, OCT, and intravascular ultrasound, IVUS, in a single co-registered device. This hybrid approach provides interventional cardiologists with both high-resolution detail of OCT and deep tissue insight of ultrasound, giving a far more complete picture of what's happening inside the vessel prior to intervention. Intravascular imaging is becoming central to optimizing stent placement and improving outcomes. Historically, physicians had to pick between one modality and accept trade-offs. Conavi removes that compromise and integrates all the data into one workflow, enhancing precision and efficiency across the market. We like Conavi because it sits at the intersection of strong clinical need and a commercial opportunity. The platform is now cleared in major markets, including the US, Canada, Japan, and China, and the company is advancing its next generation hybrid 2.0 system towards a planned commercial launch in 2026. With strong validation from key opinion leaders and supportive guidelines in the US and Europe, Conavi is positioned to become a differentiated player in intravascular imaging with the potential to redefine how coronary interventions are guided worldwide. Please join me in welcoming Tom Luby, Chief Executive Officer of Conavi Medical, who will walk us through the company's progress and upcoming milestones. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, and I want to thank Brian and Jolyon. I think that our company is stronger because of the work that we do together with Bloom Burton. My name's Tom Luby. I'm the CEO of Conavi Medical, as Andrew mentioned. We are a Toronto-founded, Toronto-based medical device business that makes a transformative medical device product that guides interventional cardiology. And as was mentioned before, we have a differentiated technology in that we combine two well-established imaging modalities, OCT, also known as optical coherence tomography. Think of this as a laser beam that traces very, very microscopic detail. The other side of our technology is intravascular ultrasound. I'll call that IVUS, and that's a technology that sees larger shapes better. Okay, so combining them just combines strengths and avoids the weaknesses of the underlying modality. We're deploying this into a large and growing market into the coronary intervention space. In the future, we'll be able to address peripheral vascular, but today our target is the coronary space, where the existing market is around $900 million and growing each year, on the way to about $4 billion. Use in the United States specifically has grown from about 15% to about 30%, maybe even higher, and that's on the foundation of strong clinical evidence and now improved guidelines. We have taken our first generation product to several hospitals in the United States and Canada to learn whether our value proposition resonates, and it does. And it helped to inform a next generation product development that we have just completed and have submitted to the FDA in September. We've raised $20 million recently in April 2025 to fund the company through the submission to the FDA on the way to launch with several non-dilutive funding opportunities to help bolster that balance sheet as well. We believe that we're also, if we do everything right, that we're a strong acquisition target, and I'll talk about that. So in the intervention landscape, there are about 4 million of these procedures done each year. All of them are guided by an angiography, which is a moving X-ray taken from outside the body. I think everybody knows what that looks like. It also gives relatively rudimentary information. You can see where blood is flowing, or in the case where those two arrows are, where blood is not flowing. But that's guided therapy. But you can imagine that doctors have to be relatively choosy about what cases they're going to intervene, because it doesn't give you a lot of information. Because of that, intravascular imaging was developed to take a look inside of the blood vessels for a more precise view of what they're dealing with. And today, catheter sales from imaging account for about 900 million out of a total TAM of about 4 billion. But that is growing, and it's growing because over the last decade, this industry has taken on hundreds of millions of dollars in development in the form of clinical evidence. 22 randomized controlled trials with more than 16,000 patients involved. And the result of when you put all this data together, the researchers found that when you use imaging, you can reduce the likelihood of cardiac death by 46%, which is pretty astounding. 52% reduction in stent thrombosis or blood clots. So that's taken some time to put together, but what it's led recently to is European Society of Guidelines elevating their guidelines to a Class 1A last fall, and the American Heart Association elevated guidelines to a Class 1A for certain patients in February of 2025. So if you follow medical device stuff or healthcare in general, you know that robust clinical evidence is the foundation for how you move a market. Then you layer on top of that guidelines. In this case, we are at the highest level in the US, in Canada, in Japan, and other places. We also have to affect where patients are getting trained. And today already, doctors are being trained to use IVUS or OCT, but what they haven't been exposed to before is the combination of IVUS and OCT in the same product. And then ultimately reimbursement needs to be impacted. Today, our product and others like it are covered within the DRG for the therapeutic intervention itself. What we are looking for and the industry is looking for is an even further improvement on reimbursement. That should help to accelerate adoption even further. So why do doctors use ultrasound or optical imaging? Ultrasound is used maybe in 70% of the cases. It is the most familiar to doctors. It allows a greater depth of penetration, and they don't have to use contrast to acquire that image. So what does that mean? It means that doctors can measure the inside of the blood vessel and then choose the right stent size primarily. But it doesn't do a lot of other things well. So for the other things, they would need to have optical imaging, where it's used in less of the cases, 30%. Has a more limited depth of penetration, but it brings with it 10 times the optical resolution, okay? It does require contrast to flush and acquire the image. So what happens in practice is a doctor will not use two different catheters. They will start and finish with the same image guiding catheter. So in the case of IVUS, in the pre-intervention run, so think of this, they go up through the leg into the vasculature surrounding the heart. They'll do a survey of what they saw on the workup, and they'll do a pretty good job of that with IVUS, because IVUS, as I said, measures the inside of the blood vessel, choose the right stent, et cetera. OCT does not do that so well, as you can see on this table. For after they intervene, the post-intervention runs, this is where OCT tends to dominate in terms of its effectiveness. You can see micro detail, like whether there's a dissection caused in the blood vessel. Was that stent expanded properly against the blood vessel wall? But again, doctors are not going to trade off because it's twice the cost, twice the time, and there's added risk if you're using too many different tools within the body. So we've taken those problems off the table by combining both imaging modalities into the same catheter. We are the first and only commercial system to do this in a co-registered fashion. And what co-registered means is we've taken an ultrasound transducer. This is where the sound emanates and returns back. And we've embedded into this a laser beam. And that's what's fundamentally patented by our company. So as you can see on the right-hand side, you have a catheter within a blood vessel surrounding the heart. This structure rotates very rapidly hundreds of times a second to create a video so that the doctor can then use to look like they're going through the blood vessel, almost flying through it. So it provides the best of both modalities without any more procedural time, cost, or catheter lab space. We had a previous version cleared in 4 geographies, the US, Canada, Japan, and China. And as I mentioned, we have our next generation that has just been submitted to the FDA in September. So what that allows doctors to do is to have the best imaging tool at any time in the case for whatever that they encounter. So that's us talking about what our product does. I was heartened to see an academic paper from some of the best doctors in the industry doing a survey of available imaging techniques. And as you could see, intravascular ultrasound, or IVUS, has green, but also has some red prominently show up in the top 6 things that are done by interventionalists. OCT has some red show up in stent under expansion and stent edge plaque, 2 very important procedures that a doctor needs to do. Only when you combine those 2 together do you have green across the top 6 things that doctors do all day long. And I just want to point out that there's another product I will mention later on in the presentation that is represented by the last row, which is a very good OCT device, but has some red show up as a deficiency. So we address unmet needs. First and foremost, with an aging population all over the globe, by the time people present with symptoms, there can be a lot of stuff going on in the vasculature surrounding the heart. So you would need to have both IVUS and OCT to fully assess these complex cases. We make interpretations easier, and this is what every doctor who's used our product has said, where there's been ambiguity on what the ultrasound image looked like, or if they're an OCT user, what the OCT image looked like. All they need to do is glance to the side and confirm or change their opinion about how to conduct the rest of the case. And if you want the most simple part of our value proposition, you could buy our product and essentially have 2 different products. If you have a doctor that prefers IVUS for a case or a doctor that prefers OCT for a case, but very quickly they become hybrid fans. So a lot of that clinical data that I showed you before is about just imaging in general. As one of our milestones for this year, we have several case studies in the works. This is the first one that was published in a journal called JSCI. And what it shows is the power of hybrid imaging specifically for the things that are needed in the ostium, which is a bigger blood vessel. You need IVUS to be able to size that blood vessel. But IVUS does not do a good job of detecting ruptures, and OCT detects ruptures. So as you can see in this very wordy slide, using hybrid imaging changed the course of therapy for the better in this case. So we took our first generation product to 7 major heart hospitals in the US and Canada, Sunnybrook down the road here, the rest of them in the United States. Every single one of them understood and valued our value proposition, right? They thought that we would have a very big role to play in further developing the market further because of the confidence we give to new users and to even experienced users. We took that insight, and 3 years ago, we started on a next generation product development. And so 3 years later, we finished up the design and we submitted on September 15th to the FDA. What we set out to do is to own best-in-class ultrasound and best-in-class OCT. So there are other products out there that have one or the other, and some of them do a pretty good job with what they have. But because we have both, we still wanted to have the #1 imaging modality, and we do for both sides. But we wanted this product also to be relevant for the entire adoption cycle, not just the early adopters, not just the key opinion leaders, but those people who didn't want a headache. So we wanted to have a lot of ease of use. There's a lot of great integrated AI to aid doctors to assess tissue. We've made some hardware changes to lengthen the catheter so that the technicians don't have to put things in plastic bags to bring them into the sterile field. Very thoughtful hardware and software features to go along with it. And then for us, this will be the product that we can scale where the first generation did not have attractive gross margins for us. So we raised about $20 million in funding in April. And when we did that, we set out some milestones for ourselves in 2025, 2026. First one was submitting to the FDA, which we have done. To do that, we had to complete usability and system validation with key opinion leaders. We conducted 3 animal studies over the summer to high marks. We published that first case report. We have several more in the hopper. And we want to finalize 1 or more non-dilutive funding opportunities. We still have that yet to do, but we are very bullish about that. In first half of 2026, once we receive the clearance from the FDA, then we'll start our launch into the US. Along the way, we'll publish additional white papers and case studies, and then further publications to highlight the benefit of hybrid imaging. So we will build this the best way that we can to help the most patients. And if that means that we stand alone for a while, that's fine. But it's probably more likely that we will be acquired, we'll be asked to partner with one of these major cardiovascular franchises you see on the right-hand side. They bundle a lot of products, both hardware, consumables, software, a bunch of stuff. So it would be easy for them to adopt a product line like this. And as well, because it also helps to guide other products that they have in their portfolio, right? Boston Scientific just bought, another interventional tool. They have something to help guide it, but we think we've got a better product for them. Now, in the market space, the key suppliers of ultrasound products are Philips and Boston Scientific. Philips has a very outdated product, but it's the workhorse in the industry. We would be a nice tuck-in for them, possibly at some point in time. On the optical side, Abbott is the one that owns the biggest market share. And as I mentioned, we're pretty much the only game in town for commercially available hybrid IVUS and OCT. Now, if you wanted to buy a company, there's another company out there called SpectraWave. It's a good OCT product. If you remember that bottom line on that chart I showed you, that's their product. There's rumors that they will be sold at some point in time, and we cheer that on, because in a world where there's a lot of sharks and few fish, taking another fish off the table would be a good thing for us. So we think that an acquisition is likely for us at some point in time in the future, but again, we'll build this for as long as we need to help the most patients. We are traded on TSX-V under CNVI in the US, we're CNVIF. Our market cap as of the end of September was 63 million Canadian. You can see our shares outstanding. We have some good insider ownership. A lot of our shares are locked up as well. Recently, Dave Martin from Bloom Burton initiated coverage on us, so I would encourage you to take a look at that. And then along the way, as I mentioned, we closed on a $20 million financing. Andrew and his team helped us out quite a bit with that. We set out to raise 2 to 5 million, and because I think we had some significant interest and a lot of interest from the US side, we were able to close on 20 million, also without warrants. We did, so when we went public through a reverse takeover of the former Titan Medical company. This is a robotic surgery company. We do not operate them. We're not in that space, but we do hold their patent portfolio and some operating losses that we are seeking to monetize further. We have a royalty stream from our partner in China, where they are commercializing our first generation, and we'll develop that market, but they are closed off only for China. We have benefited from a bit of investment from them over the years. I've got a really strong team, and it's getting stronger. My CFO is in the back. Stefano, you can see him back there if you want to chat with him. Amin's one of our co-founder. We brought on Sumit 3 years ago. He's got 25 years, some of it with Boston Scientific. He's leading the charge on our next generation product development. And we just recently brought John in from Abiomed. We'll add a commercial officer at some point in time, but also with strength as we grow here. This is my board of directors. I think that you probably are all pretty networked in with a lot of the folks on this chart, but a lot of great experience building and divesting businesses as well. So that's Conavi Medical in a nutshell. I'd like to take your questions if you have any. Yes, sir. Yep. So the question is, besides the catheter, which I spent a lot of time talking about, you saw the computer-based system off on a picture a couple of times during the presentation. So the model that we didn't invent, but is already the prevailing model in the market, is that in 80% of the cases, those devices are placed, those carts are placed in the cath lab for free, okay? And then they'll sign that hospital up for a catheter minimum order. Nominally, you think of it as 100 to 120K for a console like that, okay? The payback for us, and we've modeled this relatively conservatively, is well within a year for really, I think, basic use of catheters. Yes, sir.
Your equipment will be FDA.
I love it.
And then if approved, and then what's the maximum you think the markets?
What's the maximum market?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's our confidence in the regulatory path and what part of the market can we get? We are a 510K application, not a de novo, so it's the simpler of the application. 510K requires a predicate. We are our own predicate because we already have a product that's cleared. So we feel like it's already advantaged. Secondly, we submitted a pre-sub meeting to the FDA in June. We had a meeting with them in August. We've already infused their feedback into our official application that we did 2 weeks later. So we feel pretty highly confident. The third thing we would say is we've seen another imaging device be cleared in about 4 months. So except for the government shutdown, which we hear because we got our application in before the shutdown, they are continuing to review it. Except for that, though, I think we could still have a relatively short review process. So think of the first quarter maybe, but we don't know. All right. What part of the industry the market opportunity can we capture? We're a small company. We have a lot of work to do, so I know all that. But the product is an IVUS product. So whatever the IVUS cases are, if you think, we are relevant for those. For the OCT cases, we're relevant for those. What we do is we do a better job at those cases, and we open up new cases where they would be maybe discouraged from conducting them because of the complexity. And that's really where hybrid imaging shines. But we're talking about, 40% of the cases are complex cases already. That's a big beachhead to launch into. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah. So the question is runway. We announced our last financials in June. We had 11+ million on the balance sheet then. We're in a bit of a choppier spend period right now because we're transitioning from heavy development to transfer to manufacturing and getting product stability before launch. So it's not like a tried and true monthly burn that we can report on. But what we said in April is with this financing and the non-dilutive opportunities we have in front of us, we will be able to fund into launch. And that is still very true. It's going to, as soon as we get the FDA we think, nominally 6 months from when we submitted. It could be sooner than that. Yeah. Yes, sir. I just had this conversation this morning about it because so the animal studies are not real studies because their blood vessels are different and so on. But the feedback we were getting from some of the doctors who helped us design it and some brand new ones that, we're using it for the first time is this is going to be a time saver. So I can't make any claims about it yet, but you can imagine that if you were going around and with one eye open and you now suddenly have two, you're going to be able to do not just a higher quality job, but essentially a faster job. And we will design some smaller studies to prove that out. If that's it, then I just want to thank you for your time and attention today. And look us up, Conavi.